Rain slicked the steps of the Raven Heights courthouse, turning each stride into a calculated risk. Inside, the marble floors glistened under fluorescent lights, the kind that washed all colour from a face. It smelled faintly of damp wool coats and brewing coffee. 17-year-old Wood Kade stepped through the revolving doors, his sneakers whispering across polished stone. He looked like any other teenager dragged into court, thin, quiet, eyes darting between unfamiliar faces. But that was the camouflage. The prosecutor, Alan Mercer, didn't bother hiding his smirk when he first saw Wood. A file folder in his hands, thick with accusations, made him look untouchable. Mercer was a career predator in the courtroom, a man who'd made his name devouring unprepared defendants, and to him, Wood Kade looked like prey. The bailiff called the room to order. Wood slid into his seat, a plain wooden chair that felt too big for him. Across the aisle, Mercer leaned back, adjusting his tie with slow, deliberate movements, dominance disguised as casual ease. "Your Honor," Mercer began, his voice sharp enough to cut through the stale courtroom air, "the state is prepared to prove beyond any doubt that the defendant," he glanced at Wood, "committed this offence with full knowledge and intent." Wood didn't flinch. He watched Mercer the way a chess player watches an opponent set their opening pieces, not to react, but to map out the inevitable traps. When it was his turn to speak, Wood rose. His lawyer had been sidelined at his own request, an unconventional decision the judge had reluctantly allowed under the state's rare pro se rule for minors. Given Wood's insistence and composure, he was defending himself. "Your Honor," he said softly, "the prosecution is confident. I don't blame them, but they've made one mistake." He let the silence stretch until the entire room seemed to lean toward him. "They think I'm easy to beat." Gasps rippled in the gallery. Mercer's smirk twitched. The first witness took the stand, Officer Brennan, the arresting officer. Mercer guided him through the expected beats, the scene of the alleged crime, the supposed evidence, the way Wood acted suspicious that night. The jury nodded along. So far, so good for the prosecution. Then it was Wood's turn. He approached the witness stand slowly, his sneakers squeaking faintly on the tile. "Officer Brennan," he began, "you said you arrived at the scene at 8:17 p.m. Correct?" "That's right." "And in your report you claim you observed me for approximately 2 minutes before making contact?" "Yes." "Would you agree that during those 2 minutes it was raining?" "And yes." "Pouring?" "Yes." "And yet, in your written statement, under oath, you claim you saw me clearly from 30 yards away, in the dark, in the rain?" Brennan shifted in his seat. "Yes, I did." Wood leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a near whisper. "Your department's issued flashlights, correct?" "Yes." "Were you using one?" "No." A murmur broke out in the jury box. Mercer sat up straighter. Wood let the pause breathe before delivering the next blow. "Tell me, Officer Brennan, were you wearing your prescription glasses that night?" The officer's jaw tightened. No. "So, for the record, you're saying you clearly identified me, in heavy rain, from 30 yards away, at night, without a flashlight and without your glasses?" The jury's eyes widened. Someone in the gallery stifled a laugh. Mercer quickly objected, citing relevance. The judge overruled him. Wood stepped back, offering a faint, polite smile. No further questions. Brennan's credibility had just taken its first hit. It wouldn't be the last. Mercer glanced down at his notes, his thumb tapping against the folder. A small "Tell Wood" instantly registered. It was the tap of a man whose rhythm had been broken. But Mercer wasn't rattled enough to lose control. Not yet. As the next witness was called, he adjusted his strategy on the fly, and Wood could sense the shift. The battle was only beginning. From the bench, the judge glanced at both of them, the seasoned prosecutor and the teenage defendant, as if realizing, perhaps for the first time, that this wasn't going to be the open and shut case everyone expected. Outside, thunder rolled over Raven Heights, rattling the courthouse windows. The next morning, the air in Courtroom 4 was heavier than yesterday. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, mixing with the soft shuffling of papers and the occasional cough from the gallery. Wood Kade sat at the defence table, posture steady, eyes forward. If he was nervous, it didn't show. Prosecutor Martin Hale strode in like a man walking into his own office, tall, sharp suit, and that same thin-lipped smirk from yesterday. To him, this was just another step toward crushing a teenager who had no business being in court without a real attorney. Judge Alma Torrance adjusted her glasses and looked at both tables. "Mr. Hale, Mr. Kade, let's proceed." Hale began slowly, pretending to be casual, but his eyes burned with the intent to corner his young opponent. "Young man, I want you to walk me through exactly where you were on the night of the incident, step by step." Wood met his gaze. "I was at the Ashwick Public Library until closing, studying." "And who can verify that?" Hale asked, already flipping open his folder. Wood shrugged, almost too casually. "The librarian, security cameras, a couple of other students." Hale smirked. "Security cameras, that..." He tapped his papers dramatically. "Were unfortunately offline that night. Convenient, isn't it?" The gallery murmured. Hale thought he had him. Wood tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "That's strange," he said, voice calm. "Because the footage was sent to my email by the City Records Office 2 days ago. Want me to pull it up?" Hale froze for half a second, just enough for the attentive jury to notice. "I was under the impression..." Wood cut in softly but firmly. "You were under the wrong impression, Mr. Hale." The room went still. Hale's jaw tightened. He pivoted quickly. "Let's move on." He flipped to another page. "Your phone records show you were in a different part of town during the alleged time of the crime." Wood leaned forward slightly. "Do they?" "Yes. Here." Hale held up the printout. "Tower pings put you closer to Riverside." Wood didn't even look at the document. "That's funny. You know how tower triangulation works, right? It's not GPS, it's a coverage radius, and..." He turned to the jury, voice measured but confident. "If you check the city map, you'll see that the library falls right on the edge of that radius." Hale opened his mouth, then shut it. The faintest blush of frustration crept into his cheeks. Wood didn't press. Not yet. He wanted the jury to notice who was in control of this exchange. Judge Torrance arched an eyebrow, clearly clocking the shift in tone. "Mr. Hale, do you have an actual question for the witness?" "Yes, Your Honor," Hale said tightly. He flipped pages faster now, a little less sure of himself. "I'd like to know why, if you were so innocent, you didn't just call the police immediately when you learned you were a suspect." Wood's reply was soft but surgical. "Because, Mr. Hale, sometimes calling the police isn't the safest thing to do, especially when you know they've already made up their mind about you." A low ripple ran through the jury box. It wasn't anger, it was recognition. Hale leaned in. "So you're saying law enforcement is out to get you?" "I'm saying," Wood replied evenly, "that sometimes the truth doesn't matter until you can prove it, and that's what I'm here to do." The judge's gavel rapped once. "Gentlemen, keep it professional." But the atmosphere had changed. Wood Kade, 19 years old, in a city where prosecutors didn't lose to kids, had just dictated the rhythm of the cross-examination. Hale shot him a look that was part irritation, part grudging respect, and somewhere deep down, a flicker of doubt. Wood didn't smile. He just sat back, pen tapping once against his legal pad. The trap was starting to close, a pause, and Hale didn't even realize he was walking straight into it. Wood let the silence stretch after that last sentence. The jurors leaned forward. Even the court stenographer paused for a half-second before resuming her furious typing. Hale tilted his head, trying to mask his irritation. "And why exactly would calling the police not be the safest thing to do, Mr. Kade?" Wood's eyes didn't leave him. "Because, sir, when the detective assigned to your case is the brother-in-law of the man accusing you..." He let the words hang in the air like a guillotine blade. Sometimes the law isn't on your side. The gallery erupted. Gasps, whispers, a faint "oh my God" from somewhere near the back. Judge Torrance banged her gavel twice. "Order! Order in the court!" Hale's face flushed red. "That's a baseless allegation," he snapped. Wood calmly reached into a worn leather folder and slid a single printed email across the defense table. "Then you won't mind if the jury sees this chain of messages between Detective Carl Hensley and your key witness?" Hale's throat worked. His smirk was gone. "What is this supposed to—" "Read the third line," Wood said quietly. Hale scanned the paper, and for the first time since the trial began, his mouth stayed shut. Judge Torrance's voice was steady but sharper than before. Mr. Hale approached the bench. The two conferred in hushed tones, but the jury saw it. They saw the shift. The predator had just been cornered. When Hale returned to his table, his posture was no longer that of a man in control. He tried to push forward with questions, but they landed with no weight. Every time he reached for authority, Wood was already there with a counter, dismantling his logic piece by piece. And then, the moment came. "Mr. Kade," Hale said through clenched teeth, "if you're so certain you're innocent, tell us. How do you explain the eyewitness who swore she saw you at the crime scene?" Wood's gaze swept the jury. He took his time before answering. "Simple," he said. "She's lying, and I can prove it." He reached into his folder again and pulled out a photo, grainy but clear enough, showing the so-called eyewitness leaving a convenience store across town at the exact moment she claimed to see him. The jury exchanged glances. One of them even nodded slightly. Hale's papers trembled in his hand. Wood leaned back in his chair, voice low but carrying. "You underestimated me, Mr. Hale. You thought I was just a scared teenager. You forgot. In chess, the queen can move anywhere she wants." The gavel came down hard. "Court will reconvene tomorrow for closing arguments," Judge Torrance announced. But everyone in that room already knew. The tide had turned. The case wasn't over yet. But the boy Hale thought was easy to break had just taken control of the board. And just like that, the balance shifted.
The teen the prosecutor dismissed as harmless had dismantled his case piece by piece. Tomorrow would bring closing arguments, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict was already echoing. But tell me, was Wood Kade a victim who fought his way to justice? Or a master manipulator who played the game better than anyone else in T? Drop your verdict in the comments. And if you think you've seen mind games before, wait until you hear the next case. Subscribe, stay sharp, and remember, in the courtroom, nothing is ever what it seems.